G'day. A different kind of update, this one from the road, so apologies for the background noise as I drive. I've done as much as I can to get the audio right, but I don't know if this will work or not. Anyhow, it was about 2 weeks ago, just over 2 weeks ago, I did an update from Stellenbosch before the race, telling you all that things have gone very much sideways in terms of a teammate that wasn't going to cooperate as a pairing quite well, if at all. I'll dive into that a little bit more as we go, but the basic idea was or is, for the Epic, you have to start as two riders. Can't do it individually, can't do it as more than two, but you have to start with two people to roll out of the gate on the prologue. And then if one rider falls apart, crashes, can't finish, you can go on as a solo rider, but you can't start as a solo rider. So before the race was even close to starting, my teammate, who was Swiss, not that that's got anything to do with it, but I've had a laugh since and thought Swiss banks and Swiss clocks are dead reliable, but everything else Swiss, I'm not so sure. We had a falling out over the stupidest of things. I thought everything was good, but as it turns out, him, his wife, and he had a mechanic friend that he flew in from Switzerland. His wife was South African, but anyway, they've got a house in Stellenbosch, and things went slightly wrong initially, that the mechanic had gotten possibly sick with COVID, but we had to test a few things. So for the first couple of nights I was there, I just stayed in a hotel that was close by, and only the mechanic was suspect on the virus, but as it turns out, he came back negative, no big deal. So we started, basically as soon as I got there, put the bike together, got a few things sorted out, and started to ride together for the first time with my new teammate, and everything was good at that stage, except for, and I think this has something to do with the travel side, I was riding like a dog. There's no other way of putting it. I was at riding at half of my abilities, and I felt like crap. But thankfully, my teammate, his wife, and the mechanic, who all ride, we're all out together, sort of put that down to, traveling and all the rest. And the next day went out again and rode better, but still not even close to myself. But at that stage, the rider had sort of started to not backflip on me, but started to get a little bit nervous. Was I going to be able to even get through this thing? Was I going to be able to compete at all? We should make plans for when I fall apart. And I didn't go all that way to do that. And I said, look, I'm coming good. I know this isn't me. I've got faith in it. We'll be right. To which he said, yep, no problems. We'll get on with it. And on the third day, rode again and rode better again. Still not myself, getting better, but riding was on the wall for me. I was getting there. I did notice some tension in the house between him and his wife. The mechanic seemed happy as Larry. He was a really nice fella. And we were getting on with things, and rode again on the third day, and once again better, but not perfect. On my way back to it, I had full faith. Here we go. That was the Wednesday. Prologue was on the Sunday coming up after that. And anyway, that Wednesday night, we were sitting down to dinner, and like I said, I'd spotted a little bit of tension between my teammate and his wife. Didn't know quite what that was about, if that was their standard thing or what was going on. But pre-race weekend or week, I kind of understand the pressures, and I was just getting on with it. Anyway, he sat me down and said, this isn't going to work. And I thought he was just talking about the pace I was going at. Yes, I was getting better, but he was obviously a bit nervous. But what he was saying is that my presence in the house was bringing them all undone, and he couldn't have that, and we'd really only just met, and internet pairings don't always work, so basically get out of his house because it's his house, and he didn't need the tension or the problems, and he doubted everything, and it was a complete backflip, to be honest, and it blindsided me. But he said, it was kind of a weird thing. He was saying, look, it's not going to work. Go get a hotel at least for a couple of nights, and we'll work out, if we can do this. And there was a lot of negativity. And then he said, and it was a false positive in terms of passive aggressive, call it what you will, but he said, oh, look, if you really want me to ride with you, I'll do it, and we'll get through as best we can, and it's your race and it's your ticket that I'm coming in on, and if you really want to do it, then I'm sure we can do it. And at that stage I said, look, let me go and get this hotel room and get out of your house that you're kicking me out of, and I'll work it out. So I scooped up everything I could and found a hotel nearby that wasn't overly cheap at last minute, but anyway, and he dropped me off there, and I sort of got resituated and started to think, what do I want to do? It quickly became apparent to me I didn't really want to ride with these people, because if that's the way they're feeling, I didn't want to ride in a stressed environment either. It's going to be stressful enough doing what I had to do, but that was just a bridge too far. So I started to think about my options, and the way that particular race worked, I think we had a couple of days, 2 or 3 days in the local area, where the plan was originally to stay at their place each night, and we were going to get the bikes washed and looked after, and food made for us, and relaxation, everything sorted. That was all good. And then we were going to spend, I think, 3 nights quite a ways away at a place called Grayton, that they had a house set up there, and obviously initially that was same deal, we're cooking and winding down and massage and bike prep and everything was taken care of and cool, no worries. So I'd packed all of my stuff for that scenario and nothing more. So when this all changed around, I had to do a bit of plus and minuses as to how I was going to play this. First thing was, I can't do it solo, so I have to find at 2 days notice, maybe 3 days notice, another teammate, which puts me in an even worse position, rather than 4 or 5 months worth of, or 6 months worth of being in contact with this one rider and knowing enough about them and their height, the bike they ride, the power they put out, talking with them, knowing enough to think that yes, we can get through, to suddenly 3 days out before the biggest race in the world, trying to find somebody who I don't know and kind of making it up on the fly, which is, at some events I think you can do that. At this event, which is the hardest race in the world stage-wise, I don't think you can just... I know people that do it, but I was already on the back foot with where I was up to. That was going to be a little bit rough, but I started looking around anyway. I put it out amongst forums, and I went to the event organisers and said, do you know anybody who's looking for a teammate? So I started looking into it just to see if it was a possibility. The other thing was, obviously, home base, if you want to call it that, had been taken out from under me, and I had to work out then, to be able to do all of this, I would have to go back to the, what they call, Parc Ferme, tent city, call it what you will, where the riders, after each stage, get a little one-man tent. They call it two-man tent, but it's a very small tent, and that you shower, sleep, and you have to have certainly some warm gear, because it gets quite cool in the nights, all your toiletries and certain things set up, lighting, because at night you haven't got anything, and various things like that. I've done it before when I was on course looking after the riders, but as a rider I know the stuff you need. I didn't have any of that, so I would have had to have gone out and found that at last minute, at quite a cost. The maintenance side of things had gone out the window, so I would have had to have found or paid the people on course who I didn't know to work on my bike, which I don't like the idea of. The guy that was going to work on my bike in the team originally was good. I'd sort of vetted what he knew and what he did, and deliberately tried to. I was out on the trails, and I had something go wrong that I knew how to fix, so I had to play dumb and say, "Oh, I don't know how to fix this," and he went straight for the right way of fixing it. So that made me happier. Anyway, I would have had to have got all that. Long story short, that wasn't going to work. And I found a couple of riders that put their hands up, but didn't even know them, didn't meet them, and didn't even get that far into it. And it became very quickly apparent that I just wasn't going to get through this race. I honestly don't think I could have started with somebody, and even if they dropped off, I know I couldn't have, or I don't believe I could have finished this race solo. It turns out, I was watching it afterwards, it was one of the more brutal editions. That race is always very hard, but the first 2 or 3 days were insane, and then towards the end there were a couple of really, really tough days, tougher than usual. And even riding with somebody, if they'd gone all the distance with me, there was just too many variables in there that I just didn't like the feeling of. And I went over there for the experience of a lifetime and not to be miserable for a week and a half. And yeah, it just wasn't going to work. So I went through a range of emotions on this one, because I thought of all the people that, honestly, that I felt like I was letting down. People that believed in me, invested in me, backed me, helped me. And I thought about the thousands of hours of training and massage and supplements taken and electrolytes drunk and races I went to, races that got cancelled, tyres gone through, brake pads servicing, early mornings, days on the trainer, rainy nights, planning things, poring over course notes, sorting out team kit. The expense of some of the stuff I went through was insane. And on my GoFundMe, I'd put the target for the GoFundMe as $7,500. So just to put it in perspective, I think the entry alone, nothing else, was about $8,900. So I was just trying to buffer a little bit to help me take the sting out of it. But I knew I was paying money to get over there. I wasn't getting over there on a fully paid trip, no matter what. So I kind of did some rough maths, and if you take the bike out of the equation, which is about 20 grand worth of all the stuff I've done to it and got to, but if you take it out and you just did race, training stuff, massage, flights, accommodation, before everything went wrong, I was still about 20 grand of costing on that. So we raised about $4,600. So a huge thank you goes out to everybody on that one, because it did take a little bit of the sting out of it. I didn't recover much back. There was in the end, my failed teammate found another guy to ride with who took my entry. It was the only way that they could get in, and I think I got about $2,500 for my entry and a few other things that I'd bought, which, like I said, all up was entry plus a few other things I opted for was just under 10 grand. So yeah, went massively financially backwards on this one. However, when I was sitting in the lonely old hotel room, the second one, trying to work out my options, I fairly quickly had made peace with the fact this had gone wrong. To me, it was very sad, and I got very angry and pissed off at times, but I only have a short bursts. But I worked out very quickly, realistically, this was not a smart maneuver to try and push on and just make it happen, because that race would have kicked my ass and put me in a very bad place, and I would have come back resenting pushing on to get through it selfishly, when it just would have, I know it would have unraveled. They say the road is full of a lot of squashed squirrels that couldn't work out whether they wanted to go or stay, the indecision of it all. So I made a hard decision and just said, this isn't going to work. So I got a hold of my long-suffering flight lady, my travel agent, who back in 2020, when the virus kicked off and I was stuck in South Africa, pulled all sorts of strings to get me back before I was stuck in that country for years. And I sent her another message going, you're not going to believe this, can you get me back early because it's all fallen apart, which she did. Sonia from Hello World Travel in Goulburn is an absolute champion and beyond reproach, and I think I'll use it for all other travel, but if I ever go back to South Africa, I might ask her if she wants me to use someone else, because she's probably gun shy of that place now. So I couldn't, my big plan originally was I was going to do an update at least every day post-race, probably in a fairly destroyed form, but just to give people the overview and give them a few links and stuff like that, so you guys could see where I was up to and what was happening. Didn't even get there. And honestly, I went to a bit of a dark place for a while there, feeling, like I said, that I'd failed everybody. The weirdest thing was I didn't feel like I'd failed myself, which sounds strange, I know. But I'd done everything right and I was coming good and I knew I could race it and everything was set up. It was somebody else that pulled the rug out from under me. And I think I did as much as I could realistically to get the race done, and I just recognised it wasn't going to work. So apologies to anybody that feels let down. If anybody feels completely ripped off and they want their investment back or whatever, let me know and I'll see what I can do to get you your money back. Like I said, whilst it's all gone, I can, if you feel that strongly about it, let me know. I know if I ever go and do this race again and I do it all over again, I'm not going to reach out to anybody. It's going to be off my own money again. Whilst most of this was mine, there was some of yours in there. It was a really shit state of affairs, and I'm not going to name who my previous teammate was in case somebody gets pissed off at them and chases them down. I think he was just, the more I think about it, a shit of a person. My girlfriend pointed out something quite interesting, that whilst he's Swiss, they've got this place in Stellenbosch in South Africa that they live about 4 months of the year, and they knew all the riders around there and all the courses and the shops, and they knew a lot of people. And the fact that he wanted to do the race and had to look for an internet pairing was probably indicative that people that are over there that knew him maybe didn't want to ride with him. So who knows? But maybe he was just a shit of a person. Don't know. His wife, that apparently had the issue with me or being in their house or whatever, and was fighting with him. Something strange going on there. I don't know if it was her, don't know if it was him, don't know if it was all three of them. Don't really care. We'll move on. I've got a number of other really big goals, big, hairy, audacious goals, BHAGs, to chase. I'm still trying to work out if I'm done with the Cape Epic. it's still the pinnacle race of the world. It's kind of like somebody who sets themselves up to climb Mount Everest and decides to settle for a smaller, lower, whatever mountain as the be-all and end-all. Everybody knows Everest is the big one. Everybody knows Cape Epic is the big one. But I don't know if I can put myself through that shit again. Plus, put my girlfriend through years and years. When I think about it, the whole idea was in my head from a long time ago, but really the setup to get to this race started 4 years ago in 2018 when I thought about it. 2019, I'd worked a year to get over there to work it out, and then so on all the way through to now. It's Saturday morning. I'm driving to Sydney to do one of the other things I love in my life, which is motorsport. I'm going up to World Time Attack. Thankfully as a spectator, although as much as I'd love to race it, I know I can't steer a car that well yet. As it was, I would have been flying in tonight into Sydney. I remember thinking if I'd organised my flights, I could have got in a little earlier, hit the ground and gone out to World Time Attack, but A, I would have been stuffed. B, you have to quarantine for a little bit until you get all your negative tests back. And C, I would have had all my equipment and bikes and bags and everything with me. It just would have been a pain in the ass. So as it turns out, now I can do what I wanted to do if I hadn't raced, and I didn't race. So it's been a huge letdown. Like I said, I've made my peace with it, but it's still a niggling thorn in my side that I didn't get even close to rolling down the start ramp. It would have been different if I'd had a chance to have a start and something had gone wrong and I didn't get to finish through a crash or a mechanical or whatever it may have been. But yeah, to have this ripped out from under me was a little bit gut-wrenching and still yeah, grinds my gears a bit. But what's done is done. We move on. Apologies for not doing the updates. Some of it was once this was all decided and I was on my way back, I was going to try and do an update at that stage, but at that point I was too upset and just didn't want to. So this is a long one. Apologies if you've hung in there all this way. Well, clearly you're a supporter of mine and a friend of mine to listen to me ramble about this stuff, but it's done. So yeah, what we do from here, we'll see. I guess that wraps everything up as best as possible. The fallout of it all, I didn't get to race. The ex-teammate who teamed up with somebody else, he did get through it in the end, finished in a reasonable position, rode quite well as far as I can work out. The race itself was absolutely insane, so if you want to see the highlights, YouTube, the Cape Epic 2022, and you'll find heaps of good shit about that. It was a very surprising race, especially in the men's professionals. There was a real knife twist at the end that, yeah, the guys that won it absolutely deserved it because they rode out of their skins. So good on them. That's about it from me. From here on in, I've had about a week off riding. This is my second week I've ridden here or there. I really don't feel like racing at the moment. It's yeah, this has sort of knocked my confidence a little bit, but next week going to get back on the bike and start doing a few Ks and just enjoy riding the bike. I went for a couple of rides where I didn't have a power meter on, I didn't have a heart rate monitor on, I just went out and rode, didn't know how far I rode until I finished the ride, just to enjoy the ride. So I think I'll do a little bit of that and then I'll look at what else is floating about to do short term. Long term going forward, I do have one 4-day stage race in Cairns in August that I'm going to do with somebody I do know and I do trust, and we've ridden with before, and he's a mate. He's donated here a number of times. Marty and I will go up and do that one. He's using it as hopefully as a bit of a springboard comeback race after having some really nasty issues with shoulder surgery and a couple of other surgeries with sinus stuff and things like that he's had a bit of bad luck, actually a lot of bad luck, and has put it in perspective for me. So we're going to go up there and just enjoy 4 days of racing in Cairns plus a couple of days either side, set up and then wind down. Not a bad place to be, Cairns, in August. So and in between all that, I've got a major lifestyle change that me and the girlfriend are moving to the northern coast of New South Wales, which hopefully won't be underwater by the time we get there with all the floods and everything. So yeah, that's about me for a while yet. I'm going to stop talking because it's been, Jesus, nearly half an hour. You're all caught up, and thank you for following in this insane journey that didn't work out satisfactorily for all of us at all, but I'm alive, I've got my health, I've got the people around me that love me, and we're all good. So I'll get on with driving. Thanks for tuning in. Onwards and upwards.